Dr. Shah here, and welcome to another episode of Teaching Humanity Remotely. Today, I want to discuss the idea of fear, and that everything that limits me comes from fear. And I know that I've shared with you before that there is an element of protective fear. I'm not going to put myself in harm's way. I'm not going to put my hand in a hot fire. There are those elements of fear that are very important and useful. But the kind of fear that I'm discussing right now that I think we all have, and I think it can serve a purpose, I want to say that I could also get free of it by really paying attention and using my life experience as evidence as to what I'm speaking about. So, for example, I have a friend who doesn't want to date anyone because of fear of being abandoned. I have a friend who is afraid to apply for different works because of anxiety. I have a friend who is fearful of being excluded. I have a friend who is fearful of making a lot of money. I have a friend who's fearful of studying because they think they're not smart enough. All these different ways in which we limit ourselves. And I want to describe it like there's a little devil on our shoulder, in our heads, that just is so negative in whatever capacity that we hear that voice that sort of wants to keep us down and paralyze us. And whatever the voice is saying, whether it's about work or socializing or dating or any kind of success, wherever you hear that voice is only giving you an opportunity to see what you pay attention to. So let's say I am awaiting a medical test, waiting the results of a medical test. And I am the kind of person that when I wait that kind of result, I get really nervous and I get myself all worked up and I'm full of fear that the result's going to be bad and it's going to be life-threatening. So I get myself completely crazy, paralyzed, just neurotic and full of anxiety. And the test comes back where I'm completely healthy. If I was that type of person, what would normally happen is I would take an out breath, maybe, wouldn't even really pay attention to it, and I would just move to the next thing that's going to frighten me. Instead of stopping and seeing, wow, I just wasted 48 hours of totally being anxious, not being able to sleep, my stomach was hurting, I didn't feel good, and the results of my tests were totally fine. So I don't need to do that anymore. And that's what I mean by paying attention, watching your life, watching what you do in your head, what you say, the words that you say, and then watching the reality and seeing where it matches. In this particular case, in the story that I'm telling you, and this is a make-believe story, I'm saying that the anxiety that the person had, because it really wasn't me, I'm just saying, the anxiety that the person had made them waste 48 hours of complete energy. It was dreadful, right? Then they get the result, and they don't pay attention to the fact that they're fine. And they move on to the next thing that's going to have them react in that kind of wasteful energy, full of anxiety, negativity. Okay? My position is the results were good. Stop everything. Pay attention. Pay attention to the fact that you wasted 2 days of your life and the results were positive. So did you really need to do that? No, you didn't need to do that. Then see if that matters to you. If that matters to you, that you wasted 2 days of your life, that you felt terrible, that you ran to the bathroom, that you had a headache, all the bad things that come with that kind of anxiety and fear, start making a commitment that the next time you're in that situation, you're going to try to not react that way. Then the next time you're in that situation, you see that you react that way. Once you see it in the middle of the reaction, see if you can use a technique, a strategy, a tool to help you to see if in the moment of the situation where you're getting crazy again because that muscle that has a lot of stamina and it reacts the way it reacts and it's fear-based and you're used to reacting that way and it's kind of automatic, but you're catching yourself. So in that moment, see if you can use a certain technique. Count to 10. Meditate. Say, I see that there's a part of me that's really nervous, but not all of me is really nervous. There's a little separation from my reaction and how I'm watching myself react, so I can stop reacting that way. See if that works. So there's a lot of different ways you can be. The other thing is, if you get the result back and it's not a positive result, you're wasting the 48-hour energy of being so distraught before you got the answer of the result. Doesn't get you more prepared. No matter what the result is, if the result is a negative result, that doesn't give you cause to be crazy for 48 hours. It doesn't, because what you need, if the result is negative, then you need to have enough energy to know how you're going to go about healing yourself from that negative result. So the negativity never really serves us. And the reason we respond that way, I believe, is because this is old habitual way of responding, and it becomes a habit, and that muscle is very strong. And if I want to respond a new way, I have to start to exercise a new muscle. I have to remember before I react. If I can't do it then, I have to remember if I'm seeing I'm reacting. Like whenever I get into the picture of my life, whenever I get to see it, if I need to change my reaction so that it's not habitual, so it's a new way, I need to start building that muscle and building that stamina. And that's really what I'm saying. You can validate your life by watching it, by just watching your reactions. And if you see that your initial reaction to many things are based on fear, and how you'll know that is if you are feeling negative, and if you're feeling limited or paralyzed, then you'll know that your reaction is based on fear. As opposed to, for me, what I do, let's say I live in an area where, there could be a hurricane. So that is the reality of the situation. I live in an area where there could be hurricanes. I'm not living in fear of the hurricane. When I had hurricane damage in my new home, I reconstructed all that I could with the mindfulness that there could be another hurricane as I live and repair my home. So I'm not putting energy out that there will be. I'm not putting energy out that there won't be. I'm just preparing myself as best as I can be while I want to live in this environment. And I think that's like a very practical, very intelligent way to handle it. I am not attracting negativity. I'm not attracting illness. And I'm also doing all that I can to make sure I am as healthy as I can, right? Because I want to do my part. And so I believe the law of attraction is present, but I also aid it. I aid it with my own positivity. I attract positive outcomes because I feel genuinely positive, and I am going to attract that. And if there is a circumstance in my life that can be difficult or challenging, I already know that I'll handle it. I'll handle it with as much grace as I can, and I'll handle it the best way that I can. And I think that's really important, how I show up to the circumstances of my life. And that's where I believe like the law of attraction is so important. I do not respond with fear. I respond with an attitude of gratitude and an attitude that I will heal from this circumstance. I will rebuild from the hurricane, and I will have less to rebuild because when I built initially, I built with the intelligence that maybe it will happen. And I'm not saying that it's going to happen, but I'm not going to put my head in the sand and not be as responsible as I can be. So that's the thing about life, reflecting, so I can make little adjustments. This podcast is really about how each and every one of us can validate for ourselves if we're living from a place of fear or not. And how I know that is when I reflect on the circumstance, how did I feel throughout that whole experience? Did I limit myself? Was I negative? Did I have a bellyache? How did my stomach react? How did my head react? How did my heart react? And we can teach our children the same thing. We can teach our children to pay attention, be present, monitor your own behavior by paying attention to your actions. Paying attention is key. And then we can decide that I don't want to pay attention to responding in a way that's always negative, that makes me afraid, that limits me. Yeah, I'm just going to take the risk. I'm going to go out for that part. I'm going to go out for that team. And maybe I'll make it and maybe I won't. But I can at least be satisfied that I tried. And in that moment where I'm not sure if I'm going to make it or not, believe in myself. I'm going to believe in myself because why not? And in the law of attraction, maybe I'll get the result I want. Maybe I won't. And that's okay because I believed in myself and I was so happy that at least I tried. And I think that's a really good lesson to teach our children, that we are resilient. We try things. Some things we like, some things we don't like, some things we do well, some things we don't do well. Sometimes we don't want to try when we're doing something that's really hard for us. It doesn't feel good to put ourselves in that situation. Like I don't want to learn how to be a car mechanic. and that's fine. So we don't have to feel badly about ourselves when we know that that's not a good fit for us. But when we are really wanting something, I think it's very important for us to believe in ourselves, and that can only help. And then if there's a consequence where we are disappointed, then that's okay. That's a learning lesson. That's what we go through. It doesn't define us. It helps us to be stronger. It helps us to narrow what we really want. It's all right. But to give up too easily, I think that's not the right message for myself. That's not the message that I want to attract. And to work so hard that I'm going to feel terrible of myself, I don't want that either. But our children can also be good guides of their own behavior if they're paying attention. And if you have ways in which you can teach them the strategies so that they can pay attention, give them the technique of seeing if they can separate themselves from themselves and sort of watch as they're reacting. And you can have a conversation about how that felt. And the more you can describe the words, give them the words to be able to help them understand how they're reacting, the better that they can understand that they can get free of fear. And they'll see that that frees them to not be as limited and not be as paralyzed. Because a lot of young people are having a lot of anxiety. And again, I wonder how much is being taught to our society that's such a hot ticket item. Oh, everyone has anxiety now, so let's just put it on that and then let that be the excuse. No, this is an uncomfortable situation. I can feel uncomfortable about it, but I can also overcome it. I can take small little baby steps, and I don't have to give in to that anxiety. Sometimes it's bigger than us, but sometimes it isn't. And it's important for us as adults to be able to help our children navigate when it's within reason for us to be able to make adjustments, and we'll be able to overcome and just have a learning lesson, and when it's bigger than that. Until next time, please feel free to visit me at learnwithmeremotely@gmail.com. Be well.